turning out. The intent of the Dignity Act is to afford all students in schools an environment free of harassment, bullying, and discrimination. The sexual harassment is adults. Bullying is student to student or adult to student. It has only anything to do with students. So, like we've talked about before, it's not about your coworker bullying you, your supervisors are bullying you, a parent bullying you. This is student to student. There are other things that protect you as adults. Whoops. This is a quick review.
Every student deserves to go to school free of fear. However, harassment, intimidation, and bullying are unfortunate realities of today's school environment. Bullying incidents especially have dominated the national headlines over the past few years. Statistics show that 1 in 3 teens report being bullied, and 1 in 10 reported being bullied daily or several times a week. Bullying can happen anywhere at any time. It can be face-to-face, through text messages, or on social media sites. Bullying is not limited by age, gender, education, or socioeconomic level. Anyone can be a victim. Bullying can be devastating in a student's life and can cause lasting harm. It is not a phase that kids go through or just a normal part of growing up. It should never be ignored. So how do you know if you're being bullied? Abusive situations that are defined as bullying incidents have 3 main characteristics. Harm. Someone gets hurt physically, socially, or emotionally. Unfair match. One person or group does not have the physical, verbal, or social skills to effectively contest the other person or group. Repeated occurrences. The harm and unfair match are repeated over a period of time. Other abusive situations, including harassment and intimidation, can be harmful and should be reported, but the combination of these 3 criteria makes bullying especially damaging to the victim. If you think you're being bullied, intimidated, or harassed, we want you to know that there's help. If you're being mistreated, tell an adult now. Bullying, harassment, and intimidation have no place in the school setting or your life. Your parents and your school's administration want to know if you're being mistreated so they can take the appropriate actions to stop the behavior. So you can get the education that you deserve and reach your full potential. There is help and there is hope. Tell an adult today.
So the protected classes, really quickly: race, color, ethnic group, national origin, disability, religious practice, religion, weight, sexual orientation, gender, sex. Religion and religious practice are 2 separate things. I remember one of our more colorful students, when I first started here, he wore a hoodie every day. I said that, it just, a long story, but finally I said, the next time you wear a hoodie, I'm taking it. You're not, you can't wear a hoodie anymore. So the next day he wore a hoodie and he came in and told me that he was a member of the Jedi religion. This is a true story here. And he's a Jedi, so I love Star Wars, so I'm on the computer looking at there is a Jedi religion, they do wear hoods. I did say that it's not gonna fly, blah, blah, blah. He kind of believed me and didn't wear a hood after that, but I might have lost if we had gone farther. But religious practice, we have to honor people's, what they do in their religion. The new one that you need to know about that's just came out is that our dress code and grooming habits. So we cannot discriminate against hairstyles, hair colors, and that. So that's new. We don't do that here. I do see more colorful hairstyles. I actually really like them. But we can't talk about them. We can't really I've said, oh, I like your hair today and stuff like that, but We cannot discriminate based on any of their grooming. So the only way that we are going to stop bullying in our schools, and this is real to me now, some of you know and some of you don't, but last year, the last day of school, and I think I can say this without crying, my niece came home from school at 13 years old and she hung herself. And we know she was bullied and they're working through that and our families work through that. But this is real to me now and I take it very, very, very seriously and you should too. Because if it can happen to my family, full of educators, all teachers, all educators, it can happen to yours. And bullying is real, it affects kids. They don't tell you, they don't tell their parents. So we've got to have antennas up all the time.
Well, the school culture and climate is really very, very important. Every school has its own personality, it has its own feel. For many people, who've spent a lot of time in schools, it's very apparent the minute you walk in the door. Does that school feel busy? Does it feel chaotic? Does it feel welcoming? Does it feel a bit serious? And that's the climate of a school. It's how does it feel? It's just like the temperature. And it's something that is very unique to each school, and it's something that ideally, it needs to be its own climate, but it also needs to be a positive climate. It's one that makes every student feel a part of it. The culture is something that runs more deep. It's how that school does things. What kind of values, what kind of traditions, how do people treat each other? Culture is something that takes a bit longer to address, and that runs a bit deeper. And it's very important to have a healthy, positive school culture and climate because it sets the tone for everything that happens within that building and for every individual within that building, both students, teachers, staff, parents, the entire school community.
Schools serve many purposes. The 3 R's, certainly reading, writing, and arithmetic, are very important. Science, and history, and music, and art, and physical wellness. And schools are a center where children can get instruction and develop competence in all those areas. But there's another really important part of the school that differs from being at home. You have to interact with people who are not like you and your family. And you have to learn how to negotiate, how to connect, how to understand, how to work together with people who look different than you are, who see the world different than you are, and who may not even agree with some of the things that you hold dear. So schools are a place where all children learn to understand what's important to them, but also what others value and feel is important, and then how do we figure all that out in a solid working community. You can't do that anyplace else, not easily anyway.
All schools have a culture, all schools have a climate. And it's not something that you have or don't have, everyone has it. But very often the school culture and the school climate happens by default. And there's no one who's really steering that ship. And maybe I'm getting more into the, my experience as an administrator. But the truth of it is if nobody's steering the ship and kind of leading the charge, you allow that culture to develop on its own, and you allow the climate to develop on its own. And it's possible that there could be a positive culture and climate by default, but it's much more likely if it's done with intention. And I think that intention comes from the leader of the education leader of the school, the principal. And then the principal, of course, develops leadership throughout with other people who get on the bandwagon. And when that happens and people make an intentional effort to improve and create a positive culture and climate, that's when things really start to happen.
I do all of my work with administration and with staff because my hope is to build a culture and climate of learning, caring, and success. What I know is that the climate is primarily made up of the people within it. Students cycle through, staff stays put. So the staff is a much more consistent entity to build culture and climate.
So that's so true. We always are student focused, but we should be focused on each other. And I'm hoping that when we're talking about a caring climate, that we remember that even when it's difficult and we don't agree with each other, but it's really important that we remain professional, kind, put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, make positive assumptions. And we have a very, very caring climate here. I'm positive. I see it every day and I've written about it. But I want to make sure that we continue that path and that we even, step it up a little bit more. So I know that right now, this is a tough time of year. It's a tough time of year for me. It's a tough time of year for you. It's a tough time of year for our students. This is actually the emotional life cycle of a first-year teacher. However, now we're finding out that although it flattens out a little bit, it's for most of us. And so we see our first-year teacher at the beginning of the year just surviving, right? Like going in, little disillusioned because what they tell you at college is not what's going on in the real world. And no one told me about this in administrative school, and nobody told me about this. So I understand that as a teacher and an administrator, right about when it starts getting warm, in a week or two, we should start to feel some kind of rejuvenation. So I'm just asking you to try to get through this last little bit of hump, and we're all going to feel better soon, I promise. Maybe after today. So, and then it's reflection, and then we move forward anticipating the next year. So what you're feeling right now, that seasonal affect disorder, that I got to get outside, like it got to be 62 the other day. I just went outside and just drove to my car to Stewart, so I didn't need anything. I just wanted to get in my car and drive with the window open. So we all need that. So I just want you to be aware where you're feeling now is not uncommon. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through the coronavirus and whatever comes. We're going to be able to write stories about it. We're going to be able to write journal articles about it. All is good. All is good. It's not. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great spring. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to.
So if you have a personal device on you right now, we would like you to join us in this activity. This is a mood meter. If you go to moodmeter.online, you should be able to enter that group code that's listed at the bottom of the slide there and just tell us where you're at. So you can see the live chart up here of the group as you're plotting it. We will also have another one set up for lunchtime, so as you are done with your wellness sessions and getting some more snacks in the cafeteria, we will have a new code up and down there. I can also email it out, and there'll be Chromebooks there if you need a different device that will be set up to do this. So as you're doing that, we're going to watch one more video before we split up.
How do you feel? How do you genuinely, honestly feel? Right? Ask a teacher that question, and the answer could be absolutely terrifying. As human beings, we have become pretty shocking at taking care of ourselves. But as teachers, we have reached a whole other level of neglect. A third of teachers quit the profession within the first 5 years of qualifying. On top of that, 1 in 83 last year was signed off on long-term sick due to pressures of work, stress, anxiety. That's 3,750 human beings. You may know one of them. Friends, colleagues, family. We have reached an epidemic of stress in our schools, and it is a reality that needs facing. But what if we could, as individuals, take little steps to start to place the same emphasis on staff well-being as we do for the mental health of the children that we teach? What would that look like? How would that feel? So everyone has a story of how they've struggled, and I'm no different, and wow, was I struggling. So a couple of years ago, I bumped into my old primary school PE teacher, randomly at a museum with my 2 young girls, and as they toasted some bread, he asked me how I was doing and how being a teacher was. And in that moment, I decided to be completely honest, both with him and with myself. And I told him of how much I was struggling, how life had just become too much, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher anymore. I didn't know if I could be a teacher anymore. And then I listened to him, and I absorbed how difficult he had found the role, not just back when I knew him, all those years ago, but in the years that followed, and actually throughout his whole career. And I wasn't alone. I realized other people felt the same way that I was feeling. Because the reality was that 30 years on from those days with him in PE, I was the broken one. I was the one struggling to simply cope, let alone stand up and teach outstanding lessons every day. And 2 weeks after that seemingly random catch-up with that old school teacher of mine, I was signed off work sick. And in danger of becoming one of those 3,750 teachers that stay signed off. And I made a choice. And my choice was to survive. So I have always loved yoga. I loved yoga so much that I signed up for a yoga teacher training course with the best teachers at the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful studio, but I wasn't going to do it. I was going to cancel my place because life had just become too overwhelming. But the universe, which already I know sounds a little bit yoga-like, so I knew I was on the right track, lined things up a little bit for me and made it just a little bit easier for me to say yes. To say yes to that cause and yes to myself. And never have I been more thankful of the timing of this yoga teacher training starting, because it taught me everything I needed to know to start to put my pieces of myself back together. If nothing changes in our schools and emphasis isn't placed on staff well-being, then the extraordinary human beings that teach or have the mind-blowing task of teaching the next generation of extraordinary human beings will lose their sparkle. And their drive, their determination, their passion will go. You are so important. You are so significant. Yes, a change in the way that the education system views staff well-being would be wonderful, life-changing, teacher-saving. But what can we do as individuals to begin to collectively move mountains? It is so simple. Take care of yourself. That's it. If we can commit to taking care of ourselves, if we can start to change our perspective about this thing called work-life balance, support each other along the way, then a change can happen. We have stopped listening to ourselves. We are starting to become disconnected and separated from our lives. How often have you wished your day away, your week, your school term, just to get to the evening, the weekend, the next half term, just to breathe? That right there is how we are becoming disconnected and separated from our lives. But you can change and improve your life. You can increase your happiness levels and your connections with the world around you and those people in it. I know you can, because knowing this to be true is what saved me. Saved me from staying broken, saved me from quitting a job that I actually loved, saved me from separating myself from my own children, my family, my friends. So I said it was simple, but how do we even begin to take care of ourselves? Grab a notebook, start a journal. Tell yourself that you are enough, and do that every single day. Drink enough water, exercise. Practice mindfulness, which is just meditation, which is just sitting still, quietly, for a few minutes. Try yoga. Get curious about your relationship with your phone and social media. Practice random acts of kindness. Ask for support and begin to connect with who you truly are. Why? Why bother? Why bother doing all these things? Because you are exquisite. And there is no one else like you. And if you doubt your significance, if you don't believe that you're important in this grand scheme of things, stop. Stop right there in that moment, in that thought, and remember this. Your light is the most important thing in your life that needs protecting. So guard it, shield it, fuel it, and defend it with your life. Because then you can be the light in someone else's life. Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone, whether you're instructional or not. You all